Hey there, my name's Andrea Gaughan and you're watching my knitting podcast. I'm a knitwear designer based in Asheville, North Carolina, and this is a little place where I tell you about what I've been working on lately, share some in-progress designs, things that have come out recently, and generally just try to give some behind the scenes into the process of designing knitwear. And today I'm going to be first talking mainly about a knit-along that we've just started for the design I'm wearing, and I'm also going to talk about a design I released last summer that is going to be re-released in the next couple weeks, and that is because I'm adding bust darts to it, which is, I'll get into that. And then at the end, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into a new design I've just started working on, which is going to be my first fall design for 2024. And then I think I'll also talk at the end just a bit about what I'm hoping to do in these podcasts. And if this is your first time ever tuning into my channel, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you like hanging out with me and seeing what I am doing and getting a little behind the scenes. And I also want to welcome back everyone who's been here before. If you've been here before, you may notice that I've cheated a tiny bit by calling this podcast episode 1, because I have started and stopped podcasting a few times before, and I was originally trying to do monthly, and then I was trying to do weekly, and I'm just gonna do whatever schedule works for me from now on, and I'm just restarting. But I'll get into that, like I said, a tiny bit at the end of the podcast episode. So welcome back, and let's get into it. Okay, first thing I want to chat with you about is the knit-along that has just started for the design I'm wearing right now. First, I'm going to go over the details of the knit-along itself, and then I'll give you some info about the design. So this is a knit-along that's actually co-hosted with my local yarn store, which is Black Mountain Yarn Shop. And if you're not familiar with them, they're a yarn shop located in Black Mountain, North Carolina, which is just like 20 minutes outside of Asheville where I live. So they're definitely my favorite local yarn shop for selection of yarns that I really like. And they have a fun little knit night that I go to occasionally. And I'm really excited to be co-hosting with them. And I actually had a trunk show there just a couple weeks ago where I was able to talk with people in person and bring my designs for people to look at. That was my first time ever doing anything like that, so fun to have that relationship with a local shop. So the knit-along started when this pattern was released, which was just about 2 weeks ago, but it's going to go all the way until the end of June. So if you're just hearing about the knit-along and the pattern now, there's still plenty of time to join. And there's also prizes both for people who participate and people who finish, so that you can join with the intention of trying to finish by the deadline if that's something that's fun for you and motivates you, or you can join in and just plan on participating, share your progress along the way, but not give yourself any pressure of a deadline. And the prizes are just for fun anyway, but we wanted to make sure prizes were people would be eligible either way. So the participation prizes are, you get an entry towards a participation prize for each post that you do on Instagram with the hashtag Sunshine Tee KAL, which stands for knit along. And before I get into this too much, everything I'm talking about, including all the KAL info, all the design information, the names of the design, where you can find them, and then also information on the yarns I've used, is all going to be included in the description below. So if you miss something I say, or you want to refer back to it, just look there. And everything should be there. And of course, just drop me a comment if I ever forget to put something down there, or you have a follow-up question, and I'll get back to you. So anyway, knit-along prizes. The participation prizes are for people who post on Instagram with the hashtag Sunshine Tee KAL, and that can be a whip of any size. It could be a picture of you having just cast on, you trying it on part way, you knitting at the park, or whatever. As long as it's a whip or finished object picture, it counts, and you can also enter as many times as you want. So if you're sharing your progress along the way and you ended up doing like 5 posts, that would be 5 entries. And 5 people are going to be selected to get a free pattern of mine of their choosing at the end for those participation prizes. And then we also have a $100 gift card to Black Mountain that is being half sponsored by me, half sponsored by the yarn shop. And that is for someone who completes the entire tee by the end, to give a motivation to have some kind of bonus or special reason to finish on time. And the way that you enter for that one is you fill out a form, and that is linked below. And the form is just because we want to be certain that everyone is able to participate in that one. Like, you don't have to have an Instagram to fill out that form once you've completed yours. And then actually just recently, like 2 or 3 days ago, I started a Slack channel in my Slack group, which I mainly use for test knits. That's just for chatting about the tee, because a couple people, I think, either didn't have Instagram, or I know it can be fun to click on the hashtag and see other people's posts, but there's not really a space for just chatting and connecting with other knitters on Instagram, unless we had like a big DM group chat, which I didn't want to get into. So there's a dedicated Slack group now, and that also can be found linked below. And I really encourage you, if you've already joined in or you're about to go in there and introduce yourself, comment on some other people's posts. It's a really nice way to get to know other knitters and kind of put yourself out there in a way that you could maybe meet people online that you wouldn't otherwise, and that you are sharing in a process of making the same design together. And I hope people really enjoy that, because I get feedback from my test knitters a lot that they really like the little community that is formed by having the Slack chat available and people bonding over making the same thing. And I always love to see people will post like, oh, should I use this yarn or this yarn, or I'm putting this little twist on it, and someone else is like, I want to do that too. So there's just a lot of great ways, not just to meet each other, but kind of get feedback from other people. So if you're joining in the knit along, I really encourage you to check out that Slack group. If you're new to Slack and you have any questions at all, you can email me, comment on this post, message me on Instagram, because I think once you're in Slack, it's really easy, but I think some people just have a little bit of trouble doing making their account, getting in there. But once you're in there and comfortable with it, it's a really straightforward, just chat room type situation. So let me see, I have a little bit of notes over here. I want to make sure I didn't miss any information about the knit along. I think I said it goes through the last day of June, so you can cast on and participate anytime between now and then. And I think that's everything about the knit along. So I'm going to start talking about the design itself. I don't know if I even said at the beginning. So this is called the Sunshine Tee, and is my first ever tee design. I'm going to try to walk back a bit, see if you can get a more full body view. So I made a cropped version, but there's instructions to make a full length version as well. Let me get a sip of coffee. And this is, of course, a solid version, but there's also instructions for a striped version. I did make a striped version, but I ended up actually leaving it at Black Mountain as a shop sample for them to like have on display after the trunk show, so I don't have it with me right now, but I will edit a picture in here. Aside, I'm gonna try to do a little bit more editing on my podcast this time around. I was really scared of the editing process, but I think just having a little bit of text and a little bit of photos will help a lot. So wish me luck editing that all in. Hopefully it's gone well, and you're looking at a picture right now. Okay, anyways, so there's cropped and full length option, solid and striped option, and then there's also optional bust darts. I did not work bust darts in my samples because I don't need them personally for my body, but the pattern includes instructions on how to see if you need bust darts at all, and then the exact instructions of how to do them. And then it also includes how to accommodate the stripes, because inherently adding extra fabric for bust darts is going to interrupt, or maybe interrupts a negative word, but it's going to affect how any kind of pattern is displayed. So you're basically, if you're not familiar with bust darts, you're using short rows to add a trapezoid of fabric in that is shaped like this. You can visualize that. So what that will do, if you have a bust that pulls a garment further out, you can already see just me doing that it makes the front run a ride up more than the back. And so that trapezoid adds extra length in the front only that helps the hem sit a bit more evenly. And so you can see on my body, definitely, you know, having breasts in the shape of a body does make it ride up a bit in the front, but I completely like this on my body. I don't find that to be a problem. I think it's cute, but if you have a bigger bust than I do, then it could be way more dramatic than you want it to be. So anyway, if you have a larger bust for your frame and don't knit bust darts and are totally fine with that length difference and find that the fit is fine for you, you can absolutely always omit them. But if that's something that bothers you, or you are larger busted and feel like you don't get the best fit, or you feel a bit uncomfortable about how things fit you in the chest, then bust darts could be a great option. So yeah, this is my first pattern putting bust darts into, and my tech editor helped me a lot. She actually basically walked me through exactly how to do it and did the numbers for me, which was amazing because I learned myself conceptually how to put it in, but having never actually, I learned by doing, and having never knit bust darts before, it was really hard to be confident about how to do it. So it really helped to have someone who was knowledgeable. I'm pretty sure for her own self, she likes to include bust darts. Anyway, that could not be true, but I'm pretty sure she does. And I'm just saying that because she will counter me if I was like, oh, this is how something fits in my size. And she's like, well, for my size, which is larger, her size is larger than mine. So she has like personal experience about how some of my larger sizes would fit her. Anyway, very helpful. But she's done a lot of tech editing, and she's seen how bust darts have been done in a lot of other patterns. So having that feedback was extremely valuable, and now I'm set to include that in more of my own patterns, especially ones that are more fitted like this, which is something I'll get into in the next segment. So what else am I trying to say about this before we move on? This version here is knit in Knitting for Olive's Merino, which is a fingering weight, and it is a light fingering weight. So I think most fingering weight yarns would be suitable, but I think if you have a fingering weight yarn that maybe is on the closer end to sport, it could be a bit tough to get gauge. I've just experienced that before with fingering, things that are labeled as fingering, but regular fingering or light fingering weight should allow you to get gauge pretty well. And the nice thing about Knitting for Olive, if you're not familiar with them, is they have a pure silk base, a merino base, and a cotton merino blend that are all the same exact weight. So my straight version is actually knit in Knitting for Olive's cotton merino, and then pure silk would also be an option that would automatically get the same gauge as the other yarns. Several people have knit this design in those different yarns, so they're definitely nice and good to go. But folks also have used a huge range of different yarns as well. For any of my designs, once they're released, you can always go on my website and look at my tester showcase, and I show every tester who knit the design and what yarn they use. So that's a really good way if the yarn that I used is either out of your budget or difficult to find or out of stock, or just for any other reason, not what you want to use, but you want some ideas of what else would be suitable. The tester showcase is a really great place to get ideas and see what a different yarn worked up is actually like. One of the testers used Pearl Soho's linen quill, and that looked really nice, and that's a yarn I've been excited to try, so it's cool to see that that one worked well. And Pearl Soho actually just featured that on their Instagram page, the testers version of the tee, so that was really cool. But yeah, basically any like merino sock superwash yarn, those tend to be pretty uniform. Like a lot of people used that sort of yarn. And of course, just your imagination is the limit of what to use, but because there's no color work and it's supposed to be drapey, both plant-based fibers and wool fibers that are next to Skin Soft are both great. And I wish I could show them to you side by side, but I can really tell in this version that's all merino, it feels a bit more fitted. It's still definitely not skin tight or anything, but the cotton merino version is extra drapey and it feels a bit looser, even though it's the same exact gauge. So if you kind of have a preference, if you like it a little bit more structured or want something a bit more flowy, of course, with the bounce that wool has, wool's going to be a bit more structured, and plant-based yarns or plant blends are going to be a bit more flowy. So I've talked about that quite a bit. Oh, first, before I move on, I want to talk about the construction and details a little bit. So let me give you some close-ups. This is my absolute favorite part about the design, which is this folded neckband that's done inside out. And that is so that you can actually sew down the bound off edge. And I spent a lot of time trying out different neckline ideas for this, but I went with that because a regular folded neckline is beautiful, especially in a thicker wool where it's fuzzy, but with such a fine, smooth yarn, any inconsistency in where the stitches are picked up, and with it being a very plain garment and that being a focal point, just if there's any little inconsistencies in how you picked up stitches, it kind of looked a bit wonky. So this method makes it so that the edge is actually sewn down over top of where the stitches are picked up, and you don't see that spot at all. And I think that just makes an extra neat edge. And then to match, the bottom and the sleeves have folded hems. And so stitches don't need to be picked up there since it's top down. You just knit extra length and then fold it under and sew it down like so. And it makes really nice, minimal, neat edging. And then the shaping is my first time doing set-in sleeves. And these are set-in sleeves that are done seamlessly. So they give that really classic t-shirt cap sleeve fit. And what you do is you pick up stitches around the armhole if you've done drop shoulder sweaters before, exactly in the same way you would do a sleeve for a drop shoulder, but instead of just starting to knit a tube outwards like you would for a drop shoulder, you work short rows across the sleeve cap, and most of the sleeve is actually short rows until about here, and then you just knit a tiny bit extra to get some length, and voila, you got cute little t-shirt sleeves. So talked about that quite a bit. Hope you're interested. I hope you're either joining in the knitalong or maybe you want to now. And again, everything about this design and the knitalong details can be found in the description below. Now let's move on to the next thing. Okay, next thing I want to talk to you about is the re-release of a pattern that I released last summer. I think this has actually been my best-selling garment pattern so far, and I've seen a lot of folks make them, and it makes me so happy to see once I put all my energy and love and thought into a pattern to see people making it and excited about it. So that's been making me really happy, especially this summer. There's been like an additional wave of people making it already. And this design is Helianthus, which I have two versions to show you. Again, I left one version at Black Mountain for a sample for them. So I don't have it right here, but I'll put a picture in. So this is a obviously red version, and you know what? I'll be right back. I'm gonna put it on. Okay, here we go. I'm just wearing the same bralette I was, so I probably wouldn't usually wear this one because it does peek out, but it's not really a big deal. So this is a cropped summer top, and I just really wanted to be like super basic, wearable, everyday summer top that is sleeveless. And this is a newer version I actually made in the color Jewelweed. All my samples are in Undine from Ritual Dyes, which is a cotton linen blend. This is one of my original samples in the color Forsythia, which if you follow any of my work, you may know this is one of my absolute favorite colors. Of course, it's similar to the tee I was wearing. People kind of comment sometimes because my water bottle, my phone, my usual knitting bag are all that color, so sometimes it gets to be a bit much. But it's okay, I lean into it. So I also have a stripe sample, which I will put a photo of here for you to admire. And Ritual Dyes has really beautiful colors of Undine that I think have a lot of different potential for a stripey version. I have enough right now to make a version with Jewelweed and Summer Peach as the stripes. I'd really like to do that, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time this summer. I'm just gonna have to see. So anyway, reason I'm talking about this design that came out last year is because I'm about to do a re-release. I was hoping I'd be having it ready by now, but it's taken a bit more time than I anticipated. So I'm just using the same shaping of bust darts from the Sunshine Tee, which I know from tester feedback worked out well. But this design is knit bottom up instead of top down. And they're sort of ended up being a lot of, for how the instructions are actually written and play out, there's a lot more difference in how it's done bottom up versus top down for the short rows than I anticipated. And I decided I'm going to need to knit a sample because I can't just take the exact language from the existing pattern that I knew worked. So I've had a tech editor look over my numbers and, she actually helped me figure out the numbers this time again, and what I'm gonna do is either start that version that I think I don't have time for, so I'm not gonna do that. That's what I want to do, but I don't think it's a good thing. I'm gonna cast on and then basically immediately knit the bust darts just to make sure that, because anytime I write a pattern, I always write the full pattern first, and then afterwards I knit it, and there are always just little things that come up when knitting that's like, oh, I thought that this would work in my mind, but it just has to be tweaked a little bit because of how the stitches actually play out on your needles. So I'm just gonna do a test to make sure everything runs smoothly, but the actual shape of the bust darts should work well because it's the same method that was used in Sunshine Tee. So I think that this re-release with the bust darts included is probably going to come out in about 2 weeks, maybe a week if things go perfectly, but unfortunately I've learned things basically never go perfectly. So because I have a different design I'm working on that I'm about to talk to you about that I want to be prioritizing to make sure it's ready to go in the fall, and I have plenty of time for a long test knit. So anyway, by the end of the month, by the end of May, for sure, this new version of the pattern will be out. And I think the way I'm gonna put it, I kind of gone back and forth on this, but I think I'm just gonna keep the original document totally as is, and then upload an additional document that describes how to figure out where to place the bust darts, and then how to know where in the original instructions you stop, go to the bust dart instructions, work them, and then return to the original pattern. And anyone who has already purchased this pattern is going to automatically receive this update, and then I'm going to basically treat it like a release, probably like a toned down release, but that does mean I'm going to have a newsletter discount, which I do for all my new releases. In the case of the Knitalong, I had, for the Sunshine Tee, I had a public discount code for when that first went out, but ordinarily The release discount is only for my newsletter subscribers to have an incentive to join, because I really appreciate people joining my newsletter. I know inboxes can get cluttered and there's so much that you could subscribe to, but that's really the best way for me to make sure people who want to follow along with my work actually see it when a new pattern comes out, because of course things like Instagram, you don't have control over the algorithm and your post could be only seen by 5% of your followers. And so if you are interested in following along with my work, I really encourage you to sign up for my newsletter. And of course, if you want the release discount for this pattern and all future patterns, definitely sign up. And that discount is always 20% off. And it usually goes for the first like 3 days of the release. So that will be coming out, and I'm trying to be sure here. Is there anything else I need to say about this design? I'm looking at my notes. Oh yeah, the yarn is fingering weight. I don't know if I said that. So the yarn is Ritual Dyes Undine Cotton Linen Blend. I'm like basically a fangirl for this yarn. I tell people like, you should use this yarn. It's so nice, because I know some people have a apprehension about using cotton linen or 100% plant yarns, but it's so nice. It's really nice to work with. It's not too stiff to start, and then it just really gets extra soft as you wear it and wash it. And what's amazing, as someone, I never use non-superwash wool because I don't want extra chemical processing for the wool I'm using, or I usually don't. I shouldn't say. That's not a never thing. Sometimes I'm gifted yarn, or there's some special reason I will. But as a norm, I don't use non-superwash. I always use non-superwash wool. So I'm used to hand washing my wool garments. But the nice thing about wool is it doesn't need to be washed after every use. That's something like a summer garment, where if you're really wearing it out in the world, you might have deodorant stains and sweat and like actually be wearing your garment and it needs to get washed. But the really nice thing about this yarn is it can be machine washed, and I machine wash a good percentage of my clothes on the delicate cycle and then air dry them anyways, and this yarn fits perfectly into that already existing laundering process I do. So I can just throw it in my delicates laundry, which is like all of my tees and some of my like linen shorts, and basically at least half of my clothes I put in that delicate cycle just to launder them and make them last as long as possible and launder them gently. But so yeah, it's really nice for something that I want washed more frequently to have that be an easy process instead of having to dedicate a hand washing separate process, because I know in reality for me that means that it will sit dirty and not get used, because I will just put that off unfortunately. So huge, great bonus to this yarn, and it's just really nice. It feels really nice. It feels breathable. It's perfect for an actual warm day. And yeah, I could just talk about how much I like it forever. But of course, just like the Tee fingering weight, I think it's a quite similar gauge. I'm not positive if it's the same gauge, or if anything, this might be a tiny bit looser of a gauge. I think they're about the same. Anyways, most fingering weight yarns would be totally appropriate for this. Again, if you use Merino, you would get a bit more fitted, structured feeling one. This cotton linen blend, as you can see, is very drapey, flowy. Yeah, and I wear these all the time, and you should too. Anyways, yeah, if the bust darts interest you, check it out. If you don't need bust darts, the pattern's available right now, but you can still take advantage of the re-release discount when it does come out in a couple weeks. Okay, next thing. Okay, last design I want to talk to you about is a sneak peek of what I'm currently working on, and I'm going to try to keep it really brief. because I've already talked a while about other things, and because once I have more of it knit up in future episodes, then I'll get more in depth with what's going on. But I will show you the yarn I'm using, which I feel like I get self-conscious about using the word obsessed because I feel like it's such a knitter, I don't know. But I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with this yarn, and I'm obsessed with this yarn. I love this color. I love how the yarn feels. This is, again, Ritual Dyes. This is my first time using this base, which is Marona, and the color is Chestnut. And I just love it. It's like my perfect fall color. It's a really red-brown. Oh, yeah. I don't know why. I don't think it's the website's problem. I think it was a me problem. I thought it was going to be more red, but I would say it's a brown that is very red leaning instead of, I kind of thought it would be a red that was very brown leaning, but that's a pretty arbitrary difference anyway. Everyone perceives things differently. But I'm seriously in love with this color. I, in the past, have tried to knit things in brown as a neutral. Alright, I'm already starting to get way too into it, but anyway, I've used brown in the past, but I've used cooler browns, and I never love wearing them, but this is, I feel like, my brown. And all I'm gonna show you for now, okay, I keep lying to you. Okay, I'll show you my swatch. This is a basket weave stitch. You can see there's eyelets. And I'm so excited about this. I'm knitting on it, and the pattern is so fun to knit on, and I love it. And I will show you what I got so far. I just cast this on 2 or 3 days ago. And I've honestly got a lot done. I haven't been knitting super intensely on it. I've just kind of been knitting on it as I had some time over the past couple days. And I already finished the thick bottom ribbing, and then I'm into starting the basket weave. And this, as you can tell, is going to be a bottom-up pullover, but I'm not going to tell you anymore. I already told you a lot, so I will tell you all about the fit and my kind of inspiration and everything for that in a future episode, and hopefully I'll have more of the sweater actually worked up to show you at that time. And then one more thing I'm going to talk to you about. Okay, so just want to give you a little update about what I'm thinking about with podcasting. If you've never watched before, then I don't know if any of this is relevant or interesting to you at all, so I'll try to keep it brief. But I originally started trying to podcast a year ago, and I was trying to do an episode a month, which the episodes ended up getting really long because I'd have so much to talk about over a month. And then I also felt like I was never really getting in the groove of getting comfortable and used to filming, because every time I had set up, it had been a full month since I had done it before. So I stopped doing that. Also, personal life stuff happened, as it does. And then after a while, I was like, I'm gonna start podcasting, but a month wasn't good. So I was like, okay, I'll do each week. And I did that for 3 weeks, and actually the 3rd episode never got even uploaded because I was trying to figure out how to use this camera and the focus was horrible. It was very frustrating. Anyways, the main problem with each week was it felt like way too much of a workload to add on. And I think kind of how my brain works is I like structure, so I really like the idea of once a month or once a week, but really neither of those frequencies make sense. Once a week is too often for currently where I'm at, and then once a month is too far apart. So I'm going to try to do it now approximately bi-weekly, but I'm not going to call it, well anyway, I was calling it like, oh, my June podcast, my July podcast, and I was calling it weekly. So I'm not calling it any frequency, and I'm going to attempt to do around bi-weekly, but then I just won't need to feel like I'm beating myself up if it ends up not happening, if there's a longer gap. And then also, I can also do it weekly sometimes if I have a lot to show and share. And then I've also, over the past few months, moved. So I'm still living in Asheville, but I moved from East Asheville to West Asheville, and my mom moved to Asheville. So there's been a lot personal life stuff going on again, as happens. And I've kind of decided that I want to refocus how I'm approaching my design work. And in the past, I've been like, I just have to do the design till it's done. And how should I say this? I basically was always feeling like, oh, if I've invested in a design, I need to see it through to the end. But recently I've been like, those designs that I end up pushing through to the end, I'm never 100% happy with the result. I think it's good enough to publish, and I don't think it's bad, but the ones I can just tell, like the Tee was one pattern that I'm just like, I'm 100% behind this pattern. It's a lot easier to market a pattern when I'm like, this perfectly achieved my vision. So part of that for me is like, I just have to be ready to let go of an idea, which is really hard because I'm trying to make this into a business, and to be like, I spent 3 weeks on this design and I'm gonna let it go now. But I think that it will pay off to then not have to do the test knit and marketing for a design that just, while it can be fine and wearable, isn't meeting my initial design vision. And anyway, I was kind of struggling with sharing a bunch of behind the scenes of a process and then be like, I abandoned this design after I was trying to tell you how amazing it was. But that's really how it works. And hopefully my envisioning and the practice can become more and more aligned over time, so that doesn't happen as frequently, but I think it probably will continue to happen in the future. So there are 2 designs this year that I spent like nearly a full month on and ended up deciding not to move forward with, and that's put like some gaps in my initial planned release schedule. But I feel better about wanting to, just like I said, go all in on the ones that I'm feeling really good about, and then have more energy and motivation for marketing them and everything else. So anyway, my release schedule over the coming months is going to be a bit more sporadic, but I think it's just only something I'm holding myself to. I've been holding myself to, I'm going to put out a pattern a month. And so far that has not yet been realistic, and it's really going to be averaging out to about more like a pattern every other month. But that's something I'm just going to have to evolve and see. So anyway, that's some of behind the scenes, what's going on in my brain, what's going on here. And I just think in podcasting, how that relates to podcasting is I'm going to kind of show a bit about designs, but I don't want to get too invested in showing a design until I'm more sure that I definitely want to go forward with it. I don't want to waste a bunch of time talking about a design that I then decide to scrap, basically. Anyway, thank you so much for sitting here and listening to me blabber about knitting and design. And if you want to check out future episodes, please be sure you subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I'm going to be attempting an approximately bi-weekly schedule, but I also have tutorials that come out, and I'm going to start trying to include more additional YouTube video content, and I'm thinking about things like styling and choosing yarn, and maybe like an AMA / FAQ about myself. And anyway, I have some other ideas, so stay tuned for more podcasts and more other kinds of content coming in the future. But again, thanks for just sitting here and chatting with me, and I hope to talk again soon.